And so someone asked me if they should stop using social media. And this was a person who had a regular meditation practice. And they said that they felt that using social media was detrimental to their spiritual progress. And so I would say yes, if you feel that that's happening, then stop using social media. There was a time not very long ago when nobody used social media, it didn't exist, and we managed perfectly fine. And so there are actually a number of issues with social media. The first one, which became pretty obvious as soon as social media started, was that people tend to post photographs of themselves when they're looking good and when they're happy. And so if you use social media for a while, you start to realize, or you start to think, that everybody else you know always looks good and is always happy, which probably isn't really the case. And then people start to feel like there's something wrong with them because they don't always look good and they don't always look happy. So that was one of the first things that people started to notice. But that was pretty obvious. But there are other things that are happening that are less obvious. So these are connected to what's called the algorithm. And a lot of people, I think, don't really know what an algorithm is or understand how it works. So basically, the social media platforms keep a record of what you look at, what you like, what you comment on, what you watch, and how long you watch it for. Okay? And then they'll use that data to decide what to show you next. And they'll try to show you things that you like. They'll try to show you things that you're interested in, or they'll try to show you things that will keep you engaged, even if you might not like them. You might find something really distressing or upsetting, but if the algorithm thinks that that will keep you on the site, it'll still show you that thing. And the reason the algorithm is set up like this is because social media companies are almost always private for-profit companies. They make their profit from selling advertising, and the longer they can keep people on the site, the more money they can make from selling advertising space. So the algorithm is set up in this way to try to keep your attention, to try to keep you on the site for longer than you might have chosen to otherwise. And that's already not particularly healthy. If you've got things that you need to do, that you need to be getting on with, and then there's a social media site that's deliberately designed to keep you on it for longer than you would have done, that's already manipulating your choices in life. But then it gets worse than that. It gets worse than that because if you have an algorithm that's designed to show people things that they like, what it does is it tends to reinforce people's beliefs, people's views, people's opinions, people's ideas about the world. If you're always seeing things by other people who hold the same values as yourself, those values will become reinforced. And what this does is it tends to polarize society. People get pushed into bubbles. So they'll be in their world where everybody agrees with them and other people believe what they believe. And so it strengthens beliefs, strengthens opinions, strengthens views, and people become more dogmatic, even without realizing it, simply by this algorithm constantly showing them things that reinforce what they already believe. So you've got society becoming more polarized, people becoming more dogmatic, people forming bubbles where everyone in that bubble thinks the same way, so it creates tribalism. And then there's a third thing that the algorithm does, which is not particularly healthy, and that's that it will show people posts that are controversial. So controversial posts get more views, they get more comments, simply because they're controversial. The algorithm picks up on that, and if the post is about something that the algorithm thinks that you're interested in, it'll show you that as well. Even if it's not been posted by a friend, even if it's not been posted by anyone you've ever heard of, it'll still show you the post. So it gets people involved in controversial discussions or arguments with people with opposing views and opinions. And those people with opposing views and opinions have probably also had their views and opinions strengthened and hardened by the bubble that they've been dragged into. And so you've got these three factors all working together: strengthening views, strengthening opinions, strengthening beliefs, and then bringing people into conflict situations with others that have already had their views and opinions hardened and strengthened. So that's how social media works in a detrimental way. That's why sometimes people feel they have to stop using social media altogether for a while. So if you're in this position, if you're on a spiritual path and you feel that social media is not helping you, if it's detrimental to your spiritual progress, these could be some of the reasons why you're feeling like that. And I would say leave it all alone and basically wait for new social media platforms to be developed. There are people who are currently developing social media platforms that work more like public libraries, but they're slow to get off the ground. Without public money, it would be quite difficult to produce something like that. But governments are aware of these issues. I saw today in the newspaper that the United Kingdom government is just about to ban anyone under the age of 16 from using social media. I don't think it'll be long before people under 18 are banned from social media. And after that, I can imagine that governments would start taking steps to make sure that the algorithms that are used don't lead to the detriment of human well-being. But until we reach that stage, I would say leave it alone. Just contact people by telephone or by text messaging, or speak to people face to face like we used to in the old days. They weren't so bad after all.